Okay, so we have officially made it to lesson three. We're looking at changing elevations. Our learning target and success criteria is the same as it's been, but let's take a look at it. We are learning how to simplify integer expressions and apply integer rules. And then our success criteria is I can add, subtract integers, I can identify and apply integer rules, and I can evaluate integer operations using real world applications. So the learning target for this lesson says I understand how to add positive and negative numbers in general. And then the learner goal says let's solve problems about adding sign numbers. And sign just mean positive or negative. So on this warm up, it's telling you to draw an arrow using a number line to represent the situation. Remember that with the number line start at zero, they just gave you the tick mark, so you're gonna actually have to fill in numerical values here. And then it says A says the temperature was -5 degrees, so I'm gonna go to zero and go down to -5, and then it says then the temperature rose 5 degrees. So from -5, you can start a new line and go up 5. B says a climber was 30 feet above sea level. So remember, above sea level means positive, so I'm going in the right direction. If you when you fill in this number line, I would go by tens, and the first one you can go by ones. And so you starting at zero, going up to 30, and then it says it descended 30 feet. Descend means it's decreasing, so you're gonna go back down to 30. Go down 30. Question two says, what's the opposite of each actions? So if I'm running 150 feet east, the opposite of that would be what? B says jumping down 10 steps. So what's the opposite of that statement? And then C says pouring 8 gallons into a fish tank. So what's the opposite of pouring 8 gallons into a fish tank? Okay, so this chart is very similar to what we did in lesson two. It says a mountaineer is climbing on a cliff. She is 400 feet above the ground. If she climbs up, this will be a positive change. If she climbs down, this will be negative. So it tells you to complete the chart. So here, A, we starting at 400 and we're going up 300. So your final elevation, you add 400 and 300 together, which should give you 700. And then you keep completing that from here. So from B, you going up, you starting at 400, you went down 150. Do the math here. Remember, down means subtract, up means add. Um, and then this one, you kind of working backwards. So for D, and the same thing for C. For D, you're going to go backwards. So if I started at 50, what did I have to do? If I started at 400 and I ended at 50, I obviously had to subtract. But how much did you have to subtract to get to 50? And then finally, B says write an addition equation and draw a number line diagram for B. Include the starting elevation changes and final elevation in your diagram. So you really can draw multiple number lines, or you can just add a bunch of different lines for each of them, and I would just label A, B, C, and D. Diagram by B. And again, you would fill in this number line. I would go by hundreds to make it a little bit easier to fit, or you can go by 50s. Okay, so for this one, it's the similar situation. It says a splunker is down in a cave next to the cliff. If she climbs down deeper into the cave, this will be a negative change. If she climbs up, whether inside the cave or out the cave and up the cave, there will be a positive change. So again, you just completing the charts. The same thing we did on the previous page. So here you starting at only difference is you starting with negative values. So here you starting at negative 200, you're going down 150. So you're going to subtract. So you're going to do negative 200 minus 150, which will give you a bigger negative number, should give you a negative 350. And you're going to do the same thing for B, C, D, and then E again, you're working backwards. So if you started at negative 200 and you ended at negative 500, what did you subtract in order to get to negative 500? And that's how you would complete this one. B says write an addition equation and draw a number line for C and D. So if you go back, this is line C. You're gonna go ahead and use this situation and draw a set of number lines, and then they also ask you to do D, and this is line D. And you're gonna go ahead and fill in the number line there. Again, for the number line, I would go by 50s to make it a little bit easier to plot. Now C says, what does the expression -75 plus 100 tell us about this spelunker? So in context, did they go up? Did they go down? And how far? And that's basically how you would answer C. These three questions are pretty straightforward, guys. You literally just solving. So one tells you to do -35 plus 30 plus 5. Make sure you use order operations, so parentheses first. Question 2, you got negative 0.15 plus negative 0.85 plus 12.5. Again, you're just combining like terms. And then 3, problem 3, it's just fractions, but it has 1/2 plus a negative 3/4. Next question says, did anyone use a diagram to find the sum? Show your reasoning. You really don't have to complete this because it should be straightforward. You can kind of skip that one. Now, this particular situation, put an X through this one. I'm not giving out any additional paper, any additional number lines or anything. So put an X through this particular activity as well as the next set. So we are not completing this. So you guys can go ahead and put an X through this as well. And then the lesson synthesis, um, they're just again asking you about the opposite of the number. So if it's positive, you should switch it to negative, and it's negative, it should be positive, vice versa. Then it says, what is the sum of a number and its opposites? So if I add 5 and negative 5, or if I have 5 minus 5, it should give you 0. So that's pretty much what it's asking you here. And then this is explain how to add two numbers with the same sign, and then also with different signs. So you can actually give two examples. So give two sets of numbers that give you the same sign, and then two sets of numbers that have opposite signs. Again, for this next set, it's pretty straightforward. You just combine the like terms. Go ahead and add or subtract the values to see what you get. And then finally, we have made it through the lesson. You guys have to complete Unit 5, Lesson 3, Curriculum Practice problems, and it should be problems numbers 1 through 5. And if you have any additional questions, please let me know.